Welcome to the Waves Business Coaching Podcast, where you can learn to grow as a leader, inspire your team, and optimize the operations in your organization. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, and this week on the podcast, I sit down and have a conversation with Michael Catron, owner of District Film Company here in Atlanta, Georgia. We talk about how successful leaders are action-oriented. Michael talks through what he does to be action-oriented and how having a bias toward action can lead to success in your life and in your business. If you want to learn how you can get the best out of your team in your organization, be sure to go to wavesbusinesscoaching.com, which is linked in the episode description. We would love to equip you with the tools and resources to optimize your business and give you peace of mind as a business leader. Let's dive into our conversation with Michael Catron, entrepreneur and owner of District Film Company. Mike,
what's up, bud?
Thanks so much for being on the Waves Business Coaching Podcast.
Absolutely.
Dude, so you have a really cool story. Can you kind of walk me through how you went from being an intern at a couple different places, I'll let you share that, to owning your own company and creating District Film Co.?
Yeah, man. So I got my first camera when I was like late high school. So District Film is the company I own now. We do video production. But I got my first camera like late high school. And basically like my dad growing up, like the digital cameras were starting to become a thing. And he started to get digital cameras, and I liked taking pictures and stuff, but I really wanted to do video. And so I feel really fortunate that my age that I am and where I was, like late high school, like what we call the DSLR revolution in video was kind of coming online. So like Canon, which I'm sure most people have heard of, like Canon cameras, they started releasing these like stills cameras that you could take video with, and it was like 1080p video with large sensors, and like it looked really cool. So I bought my first Canon T3i for like $400 in 2011 or something. But yeah, so we were going to a church plant at the time that was only a couple years old, and we needed media stuff. You know, nobody was doing anything media for the church, no like announcement videos or, you know, interviews or anything like that. So I started doing that at the church after I got my first camera, and all the stuff I did was terrible. It was so bad. I mean, I remember one of the first interviews we ever shot, we were using just audio from the camera, you know, with a tiny little microphone that's on the body of this little camera. Not the mic anywhere close to them. It was like a 14-minute interview with just cross-dissolve transitions in iMovie.
Hey, if it worked for George Lucas, I'm sure it looks great.
So that was really honestly kind of the start of getting started with video, and I just loved it. I loved that, and then I really wanted to get into shooting sports, and so the short version of that whole journey was I started shooting high school football. When I was in college, I started shooting high school football for free just on Friday nights. I found a local high school that had a history. I love football too, so I looked who has a history of putting out 3, 4, 5-star guys. And so McKeachern in Powder Springs and outside of Atlanta was notorious for putting out guys that were, you know, 3, 4, 5-star guys. And so I just emailed one of the coaches and was like, hey, I do video. I'd like to start, you know, like I'd love to make some videos for you guys, some hype videos. Can I come to practice? Can I come to games? And they were like, sure. So started doing that, started putting hype videos out on Twitter for McKeachern. And then I went to Kennesaw State University, and their football program was just getting started when I was there. And so I ended up emailing this guy named Matt Sims, who I'm still friends with, who is in the video world. But he was like the director of the broadcast and all the video stuff at KSU. And showed him my high school stuff, and he was like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I'd love to have you start filming for KSU football. So I started as kind of an intern or student worker at KSU shooting football there. Absolutely loved it. And then so I ended up staying with KSU football for like 4 years, 4 or 5 seasons, I can't remember. First as a student for 2 years, and then as a contractor after that. But yeah, so I thought I was going to be in sports. I did always kind of have a bug, like to start businesses and be my own boss, but I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But I'll get to that in a second. But essentially, so did the KSU stuff. Thought I'd stay in sports. Like I said, I kind of always thought I would want to do my own business, but was like, I don't know if that'll ever happen. So thought I'd stay in sports. Was at KSU, and then I another first, again, I'm very fortunate with timing. Atlanta United, the MLS soccer club, came online in 2017, and the team photographer for KSU was also the team photographer for Atlanta United. His name is Kyle Hess. And so I texted him, I was like, Kyle, how do I get involved?
Yeah.
Like, this looks amazing. Like, MLS, Atlanta, like, how do I get involved? And he shot me the number of what ended up becoming my first boss at United, Mikey. And I texted him and was just like, hey man, like, I do video, like, I don't know, if you guys are looking for anybody or help, contractors, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so I ended up interning at Atlanta United during the very first season in 2017, which was wild. Yeah, that thing, nobody knew what we were doing. I mean, we were putting that thing together as the plane was flying, but it was so much fun, and I grew up a big Georgia Tech fan, so the first, 10 matches, excuse me, were at Bobby Dodd for Atlanta United, and those were just some awesome atmospheres. Like, we'll never forget those. So anyway, so still doing random freelance stuff here and there on the side, but thought I'd stay in sports. And then I remember not getting a job offer at the end of my internship of United, and I was really hurt. I was like, no, this is where I wanted. I wanted to be here, and at the time I was either engaged or about to get engaged to my now wife, and so I was like, hey, we need a job, we need some stability here. And that didn't happen, and so I was towards the end of college, on my scenic route of college, in my 5th or 6th year or whatever it was, and essentially I was like, you know what, maybe I want to do run my own business thing. So I kind of revisited the thought of well, maybe I want to run my own business, and I'd started applying other places in the full-time world for sports, and it just wasn't happening, or I would get an offer and it was too low, or we'd have to move across the country, and we weren't really sure we wanted to do that at the time. And so then, we get to 2018, and basically our life kind of fell apart. We were supposed to get married that year. I was trying to get my business off the ground, and then it seemed like nothing was working. But it taught us a lot of things that year. It taught us a whole lot of things. And I ended up taking a job at the end of that year where I was doing sales that started in 2019. And so really my journey to running my own business really, it took that big lull in 2018 when I was trying to do freelance work. I'd get odd jobs here and there. But then 2019, I take the full-time job just to start moving our life forward. And I was like, all right, I guess this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm not going to be able to do this. But I still was trying my best to get clients and get going. And it's almost like as soon as I took the full-time job, the freelance stuff started rolling in. And so I was editing at night, editing in the mornings. I was taking all my paid vacation. I was taking sick days, whatever I could to go shoot, because I was like, oh my gosh, we might be able to make a run at this. We might be able to actually do this. And I got married in June of 2019. And I was kind of in between, do I just go ahead and jump on my own? But now I'm getting married, and I had another job offer to do video at a company in Woodstock. And I told the guy, I said, hey, I'm not going to be here very long. Because by this point, so from January of 2019 until July 1st, when I had my first day at this company doing video for them, I saw exponential growth in terms of customers, people calling, and I was doing a lot of work on the back end to try to get my name out there, get my videos out there. And so I told the guy, hey, I'm not going to be here very long. I'd much rather contract for you. And he said, no, you got to do it. You're going to be here. It's going to be great. And my first day with that company was July 1st, and my last day was October 1st.
Not very long at all.
And so from October 1st, 2019 until today, District Film has been on its own. I technically started the LLC in 2018 when I was trying to get stuff out off the ground. So the LLC's from 2018, but we've been full-time on our own from October 1st, 2019 until today. I'll say this too, 2018 when I was trying to 2018 when I was trying to get the business off the ground, I also dropped all my classes in college. I hadn't finished college yet, and so 2018 it's looking rather bleak. I'm engaged, I don't have a job, I just dropped my classes, and my wife or fiance at the time was instrumental in saying, hey, college will always be there, but if you're going to go for it, let's go for it. And so it took another full year for me to get on my own and there was 2 jobs in between there. One doing sales, like literally printing sales, like the office, like Dunder Mifflin printing sales. A very dying industry. From that to actually getting to do video full time in a company for 3 months, and then to
at least you're in the paper belt. That's the Northeast.
Yeah.
So a couple things that stood out to me in your story. So you wanted to do film. You were super into video. You love sports. Your first step was, I'm going to go do this for free. Like, I'm going to go to McKeitron. I'm going to find, like, you did the research. You're like, who puts out D1 athletes? And, of course, McKeitron, up here in Northwest Atlanta, big high school football school. And you went and shot high school football for free. That's fascinating to me. Why do something for free when now of course you're making, your company's doing very well doing this? Why go do it for free there at the beginning?
You got to have stuff to show people. I mean, doing the free thing in my world it's kind of a necessity, but also there's times when I would tell people not to do it. So let me explain that. So like, if you're a lawyer or a doctor or somebody who is certified in something and you need to go to school for it, that's one thing. I don't knock school. Like, I loved my time in college. Like, I met my wife, met great friends. Like, I don't knock college, but for my industry, nobody cares where you went to school. Nobody cares. I mean, you could have gone to film school. Nobody cares. They say, let me see your stuff. If somebody needs an ad to help them sell a product, they don't say, where'd you go to school? They say, let me see ads you've made. And so for me, it was, okay, so I did high school football for 3 years. McKeitron was my second stop. I did another school. When I was in Douglasville at the time, I did Alexander for a year or 2. And then I did McKeitron for 2 years after that. And I was in college when I was still doing McKeitron, still like honing my stuff. Like, I would shoot high school football on Friday night and then shoot KSU football on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, doing stuff for free in my world, sometimes you have to do it. Now, if it's a client that you ultimately want to work for, and actually do paid work for, sometimes doing it for free is not the right move. Because then, in my mind at least, they're always going to see you as the guy who did it for free. And when you say, oh, now it's $5,000 to shoot the whole project, they're like, wait, what? So there's a delicate balance between doing something for free to get your reel. I knew McKeitron wasn't going to be my client long term, right? But, if I'm working for a law firm or, a company or something else, like, I may have to do some of those for free, but I already know, hey, they may not be a client long term. I just need this so I can show other people. So it's a necessary evil.
You knew
time,
that
for sure.
In order to get to where you want to be, which is founder, CEO, running a successful video business, you needed that experience. You needed to get stuff, I say on paper, you get stuff online, get stuff on a reel.
Yeah, you have
and you
to
knew
have
like that's what was necessary in order to be successful in the future. You knew what needed to be done, and you went out and did it, which is why I wanted to interview you, because something I found in reading, watching a whole lot of people. I love reading business leaders, organization leaders, just learning from successful people. One thing that is common between all of them are that they are action oriented. And like, doesn't matter the personality type, leadership style, leadership role, they get things done. And something we talk about a lot at Business Made Simple is choose not to be confused. And you knew what needed to be done, you went out and did it. There wasn't I know I need to do this, but it was, hey, if I want to do videography, I need to go shoot McKeitron High School football for free to get a reel. And then 2, something else you did, which I thought was inspiring, was you're in the stage of life where you're getting engaged and married and starting a family, but you also wanted to do this thing that you love to do, so you did it at night. Like, you found time to, hey, I'm going to provide doing this full-time job, but then I'm going to take my time and, like, I still want to do this. And so...
that was a difficult season, too. So the 2019, especially after we got married, so we got married in June, and so I start this job in July, and so it's like, new wife, like setting up your home and systems and everything, and it was like, oh, I have to be gone tonight. Or I'm taking my whatever, off time that they gave me to start with, I'm taking that or sick days to
go work.
Go shoot. Not to go hang out with you, to go shoot. And so that was difficult. I mean, and even back to the free thing, like, I think it doesn't just have to be sports. I shot my first wedding was for $100.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I shot my first wedding
nothing.
for $100, and then I've done probably and then I've probably done 50 weddings after that, right? But I had to have something to show
weddings.
people,
Yeah.
in the same way, like,
That's
yeah,
right.
and I don't do it anymore. But like, or law firm videos. Like, we had a law firm client that, I think we did it for $300 or something, and then it was always hard to break away from those prices with them. But then we ended up doing more stuff for other people because we had some of the law firm stuff.
So I talked about you being action oriented. I have a funny story from earlier this year between you and I. So we sat down in, I think this was in April or May. You're like, hey, can we sit down and do like a 1 hour strategy meeting? I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. We sit down at a coffee shop, and you just like end up running through everything going on in your business, personal life, why they were intertwining, season of life you're in, what's next for the business. And I don't even remember what they were, but I gave you 3 action steps of what I would do next to solve your problem, and you ignored those 3 action steps. And then a week later, we sit down, and so you have District Film Co., right? Like, you do videography film for companies. I mean, I'll let you brag about some of your big clients that I think are cool, but
I'm not gonna.
I'll name drop a couple. The Atlanta Falcons is one. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Arthur Blank. So don't burn bridges, people. Keep those relationships even when they don't give you a job.
Let's talk about that for 2 seconds. I was so hurt that I didn't get a full-time job offer at Atlanta United after 2017. And no, I did not burn any bridges. But I ended up working for the A&B world so much now because of all those people I met, and left on a good note. Even though I definitely didn't want to. I was like, this is ridiculous, but like, we're building something cool here, and then, here we are later, and they're like a huge part of our business.
At your internship, they were paying you in like $2 refill sodas and like hot dogs in the stadium.
It was $12 an hour. And actually, if you're listening to this, anyone from Atlanta United, my first like probably 3 months of working there, we kept hours on a spreadsheet on Google Sheets because they didn't have all their systems set up, and I never got paid for those. So,
well, I'm sure you've.
You guys owe me $847.18.
You're not hurt about that at all. That's great. Don't burn bridges, though. I think that's important. It's like, that's ended up being a very valuable client for you now.
And I'm really thankful because ultimately, I'm very thankful because I get the best of both worlds. I get to be involved in sports, which I love.
Yeah,
I'm not full time there. We get to. I think it keeps my creative brain so much more engaged because I do all different kinds of projects. I'm not just focused on sports. So when we do stuff for sports, like, I can bring all the energy that I have and excitement to it.
So earlier in the year, we sit down, I give you a 3-step action plan, and I'm like, this is what you should do for District Film. A week later, you just tell me, hey, I've got an idea. And it wasn't just an idea, though. It wasn't like, hey, I've got this idea for a new product. It was, I have the idea, and I've spent the past week building it out. I've already have a pricing structure. I've built a website. I'm getting messaging out there. And it was called Sermon Clips. It was like, hey, we're going to create a brand where pastors can upload their sermons from Sunday, and we will create 3 short-form video, Reels, TikTok, whatever, vertical video from their sermon with captions for a base price per month. Easy retainer money. Like, you sign up, you forget about it. We post them for you. Great idea. And I'm like, where in the world did this come from? Because this was, when I say not even close to what we talked about, I mean, not even close, but your entrepreneurial brain was just like, I've got an idea. And beyond that, again, it goes back to being action-oriented. It's not, I wrote the idea on the whiteboard, right? It's, I have the idea, and you went and fully fleshed it out in a week's time. Have you always had a bias towards action, or is this something you've had to work towards?
It's definitely worked towards, but I've always had a bias towards, this is going to sound bad, but like, I'm an only child, so like, I think I'm naturally, and just as a man, like, I feel like I'm naturally somewhat self-centered in terms of like, I want to do things to like, I want to be better, I want to, you know what I mean? So like, I don't mean that to sound bad, I just mean like, I think for things that I want to go after, yes, I have always kind of had that tendency. But it's weird for me too, like, it's, and I know you're going to ask a little bit later, like, about why I'm kind of driven that
Go
way,
ahead.
but like, man, well, I mean, there's just like, I think there's things in my life that happened that bent me towards action with work. There's other areas I'm not necessarily like that in all areas. Like there'll be, I mean, it's changing now that I'm married and have a child and everything. With some of these things, but like, I mean, like, there's areas in my life where I'm not action oriented and I have to drag myself to do it. But for whatever reason, probably a lot of my upbringing with work, it has just always been something that like I just want to go for it. I was not afraid to email people and ask how do I get involved. I was not afraid to show up places and try to meet people and do what I needed to do. Like that has always kind of been there. I think that action oriented part of my brain, honestly, it's not a really happy story, but I mean, like, so my upbringing, I had a stepdad from 10 years old through the time I was in left for college or whatever, who struggled with lots of different addiction issues and basically didn't work. I mean, he would have years stretches of not working, would land a job and be there for maybe a matter of weeks. And there was something in me that got developed then, even though that's like not a great environment to be around, and like I don't wish that for anybody else, to be in an environment with somebody like that, like just with all his issues and the kind of the things that he implanted into my life because of those issues. But seeing him not work, seeing my mom struggle, I think that bent me towards action. And I mean, I was saving for my future wife before I was even dating anybody. Like to have money set aside, to have, like long-term savings, to have investments, to have those types of things. Like my mind, I think being in that environment with my stepdad growing up created that action-oriented part of me for my work. Like I said, there are areas like, let's take working out, for example, not action-oriented. I'm like dragging myself to go do it, right? But when it comes to work, I think because of the environment I grew up around and seeing my mom struggle, I was like, like there's something in me that I don't want to say you can't teach, but it's almost like, I mean, Jacob, you and I love sports. Like there's it factors. Like I feel weird saying this about myself, but like, there's it factors with athletes that you can't teach. And I think that there's an it factor that I have within me that I'm not saying this like, oh, I have this, whatever. But I just noticed in myself, like I have a drive to be successful and to work. I think because of that upbringing. And like it's probably out of a fear base, honestly. Like there's a fear that I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to put somebody else in that position like I was put in. And now that I have a daughter, especially, I mean, the drive is way there, and to a fault probably at times too. And I think that would be something that, I would caution young people who are really go-getters. Like, hey, like you need to learn early about boundaries. You need to learn early about work boundaries. I'm still not good at it and I'm 29, and make sure you are setting time for your family and the appropriate time and being fully present. But yeah, I think there's something in me that was birthed in childhood and my experience growing up that just helps me have that just motor to keep
it's
going.
Locus of control. It's like I can't control X, but I can control Y. You're like, hey, like you didn't grow up with a lot of money, and so but you're like, hey, but what money I do have, I can save right now for my future. And like I can control how much money I'm spending and how much money I'm saving, even at a young age. And again, locus of control.
Yeah, I was working by 15, like, and the guy would like, he was like the handy guy, who did, I'll fix your gutter and your, dishwasher and your AC and yada, yada, yada. Like I was working for him at 15. He'd come pick me up in the summer.
Mike, you're extremely action oriented. Again, I've said it's so valuable in life and work. I think it's one of the biggest reasons you've been successful is just knowing what needs to be done and going out and doing it. For someone who struggles with that, for someone that struggles with maybe not knowing what needs to be done, but for the most part, knowing what needs to be done and is slow to take action or struggles to just pull the trigger, do the thing, what advice would you give them as someone who I think has done that extremely well in your career so far?
Well, first of all, thanks, man. I would say I'd ask the question, what's the alternative? If you know what you need to do, what's the alternative? Like if I don't care what industry it's in, like get after it, like think, I've been bad about this in the past, but I try to think like, man, like would the person in a year from now be pumped that I went ahead and did this, I even think about that, like my wife and I have been on this journey to like, we're going to do no debt. And I'm so tempted to be like, I'll just put it on payments. It's fine. But like, if I just pay for it now, like in a year, I'm going to be like, I'm so glad I did that. I'm just glad I just bit the bullet and did it, in the same way with like, with work, or if you're trying to build something, it's like, if you know what you need to do, like just get after it and get it done. You're going to make mistakes, but I'd rather, you can't steer a parked car.
Right.
You got to be in motion to course correct. I didn't come up with that.
I'll give you credit.
I heard that a long time ago. What's the thing? It's like you give credit, and then I heard somebody say,
That's right.
I've always said, and then
that's a Michael Catron quote. Well, you can't steer a parked car. Yeah, I've got a daily planner that I go through every day, and one of the questions on there is, if I were to live this day over again, what would I regret that I've done? At the end of the day, if I looked back on my day and said, man, I can't believe I didn't do this, what would it be? And it's nice because at the beginning of the day, I'm already thinking about, hey, when it gets to 5 o'clock today, what am I going to look back on and be like, oh, you shouldn't have, watched a 30-minute YouTube video at 10:30 when you could have been, in your case, getting an edit done or getting back to that client.
Yeah.
So it's nice, same concept of framing, hey, right now, if I fast forward to the future, am I going to be mad that I did or did not do what needed to be done right now? And I think that helps the mindset of just, you know what, I would be mad, so let's go ahead and do what needs to be done. Let's do the right thing. Let's get it done. And I think you are an inspiration for getting it done, which I think has been a huge factor into your success as a business owner with District Film Co. with coming up new ideas like sermon clips. And I think that bleeds over into your personal life. I think that, we didn't touch on that a ton, and I know you made the joke about struggling to work out, but obviously it's hard to completely silo work self and personal self, and that, like you just mentioned with personal finances, doing what needs to be done, taking action, super, super important.
Let me say this about the sermon clips thing too, where we were joking about that we came up with a 3-step plan, and then I completely changed the whole situation, right? Yeah, Jacob, when we sat down, I was like, and you were like, hey, here's 3 steps I would take. I was like, those are great. But what I'd also told you in that meeting was like, I'm looking for, in my business, everything is custom, right? We don't have any necessarily products that we sell. If somebody comes to me, like everything's going to be custom. Like we need a video for this. It's going to take this long, this many edits, whatever. And I've been looking for a product that we could, have as one of our, pillars of the business. And I ended up having a meeting right after yours. And we were talking about another company that does exactly what Sermon Clips does. And I've been in the church world for most of my life or whatever. And I thought I'd had a similar idea, and they had implemented it a little differently. And I had a couple of tweaks that I wanted to make to it. And I went, that's it. I can do that. I know how to do that. Let's do it. And I immediately, that night, not that I still needed to do what you were what we were talking about for district, but in my mind, my priority right then was trying to get my head around some of what we needed to do for district, but also creating a product that we could start, as we try to scale our teams, we're looking for more consistent revenue to where, I feel more comfortable adding people to our team on salary. And so immediately, when I was like, yeah, that product works, it was, okay, let's get going. I don't need to pontificate on this for a week. I know this is going to work. And so, I started the website that night.
And my thing is, what's the worst case of you pulling the trigger? What's the worst thing that could happen? You waste a few hours building a website? And so it's like,
Yeah.
again, it's, hey, I think this can bring in recurring revenue for my business. That's something that I need for the business. I'm just going to do it. Worst case, I waste a few hours and it's a bad idea.
And we've launched and we already have clients.
That was best case scenario. So, like, worst case, you launch and, oh, no, we have this website and right.
And it doesn't work.
I think that's great. So begin with the end in mind. I think is really important with taking action. And don't fear the unknown. Again, the unknown a lot of times is this doesn't work, and that's okay. I've spent a few hours doing this thing. Or someone says no. Someone says no, and that's the worst thing that could happen. So, Mike,
I think there's a thing that, like, you're so worried about what other people will think if you try to, like, if you're taking steps towards something, like, even if you post, like, okay, Jake, like, when you post this podcast to your personal page, it's like, what are people going to think? It's like, first of all, they don't care that much. Second of all, like, who cares what they think? Like, just do it.
Nike, just do it. There's a brand. They knew what they were doing. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. I'm going to link your information below. Be sure to check out Mike with District Film Co. if you need some video done, some video storytelling done, or if you're a church, you need reels, you need short form video for your social media. Be sure to check out sermon clips, which both will be linked in the episode description. Mike, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much to Michael Catron for being on the podcast today. If you are looking for video storytelling for your business, be sure to head to districtfilmco.com and check out the work that Michael and his company do. That link is linked in the episode description. If you are a church and you want help with your social media outreach and want vertical video for your organization, be sure to go to sermonclips.io and see an awesome resource that Mike and his company have. This week on the podcast, Mike talked about a few things about having a bias towards action that are so valuable. Mike chooses not to be confused. He knows what needs to be done, and then he takes steps towards doing the work that is necessary in order to be successful. The best business leaders choose not to be confused, and they do what is necessary. Another thing that came up is don't burn bridges. Mike had an internship with Atlanta United, and he didn't get a full-time job at the end of that internship, and he was super disappointed. What he didn't do was, out of anger, he didn't burn bridges and ruin those relationships and be mad about the end result. When he ended up starting his own company in District Film Co., he ended up, still to this day, one of his biggest clients is not just Atlanta United, but he got his foot in the door with the Atlanta Falcons, with Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where Atlanta United plays, with Arthur Blank, who owns both the Falcons and Atlanta United. And it's all because he didn't burn bridges, just because something didn't go his way at the end of that internship. Lastly, don't be afraid of the unknown. If Mike was afraid of the unknown, he wouldn't have had no ideas. He wouldn't have started District. He wouldn't have started Sermon Clips. If you have an idea, and it's a good idea, and you've talked to people about it, and you know, hey, this has a really good chance of being successful and making me successful, making my organization successful, put it out there. Don't be afraid of the unknown. What's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is the idea fails, and maybe you've wasted a few hours of time, and that's okay. Maybe the worst thing that could happen is someone says no. That's not a terrible thing to go through. The upside is almost always so much higher than the downside. And to take that risk, don't be afraid of the unknown. Take action. For more free tools and resources of how you can grow your organization, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Organizations struggle to grow because they don't know how to get the best out of the people. At Waves Business Coaching, we inspire teams and optimize operations so that you and your organization can thrive. If you are a business leader who wants to get the best out of their team, be sure to visit our website at wavesbusinesscoaching.com, which is linked in the episode description. If you want a free plan to optimize your business, take my business report, which is also linked in the episode description. In this free assessment, you'll get a diagnosis and plan to optimize your business. This report from Business Made Simple will do in 10 minutes what many business consultants take months to do. Click the link in the episode description to take my business report. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Take care.